In the 16th century, the mere mention of her name sent shivers down the spines of the most powerful kings in Europe. She was a queen, a diplomat, and a pirate, the woman who commanded the Western Mediterranean and refused to bow to any man. While the history books often focus on the male corsairs of the age, there was one woman who held the keys to the sea and the hearts of her people. Her name was Sayyida al-Hurra, and this is her legend. To understand the woman who would become the pirate queen, we have to look back to the year 1492. For most of the world, this is the year Columbus reached the Americas, but for a young girl named Lala Aisha al-Alami, born into a noble Muslim family in the Kingdom of Granada, 1492 was the year her world ended. The fall of Granada marked the completion of the Reconquista, the centuries-long campaign by Christian monarchs to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula. As the last Muslim stronghold fell to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, Lala Aisha and her family were forced to flee their ancestral home. The trauma of this exile would define her entire life. She was part of a massive exodus of refugees crossing the Strait of Gibraltar into North Africa. They left behind the lush gardens of the Alhambra and the sophisticated culture of Andalusia for the rugged, uncertain shores of Morocco. This wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a deep, burning wound. She watched her parents' grief and listened to the stories of the homes they were forced to abandon. In her young mind, a vow was formed. She would never be a victim again, and she would spend the rest of her life making those who exiled her pay. Her family eventually settled in the mountain town of Chefchaouen. Her father, a powerful local leader, ensured she received an education far beyond what was typical for women of that era. She studied theology, mathematics, and linguistics, but more importantly, she studied the art of power. She watched how her father navigated the complex tribal politics of Morocco and the growing threat of European expansion. At the age of 16, she was married to Ali al-Mandri, a friend of her father and the governor of the city of Tetuan. This marriage was a political alliance, but it became much more. Tetuan was in ruins at the time, destroyed by the Spanish years earlier. Together, Sayyida and her husband rebuilt the city from the ground up, turning it into a fortified bastion of resistance. She didn't stay hidden in a palace. She was a co-ruler in every sense of the word. She sat in on meetings with generals, helped oversee the city's defenses, and learned the intricate details of governing a frontier state. When her husband died in 1515, the people of Tetuan didn't look for a male successor. They had already seen who was truly running the city. She stepped into the role of governor with an iron will. It was at this moment that she adopted the title that would go down in history, Sayyida al-Hurra. This wasn't just a name, it was a statement. It translates to the noble lady who is free and independent. In a world where women were often treated as pawns in political games, Sayyida declared herself answerable to no one. But being a governor wasn't enough to satisfy the hunger for justice she had carried since her childhood in Granada. She looked out at the Mediterranean and saw the Spanish and Portuguese ships dominating the trade routes, reaping the wealth of the seas while her people struggled. She realized that to truly protect her city and strike back at her enemies, she needed to control the water. This is when the legend of the Pirate Queen began. Sayyida al-Hurra turned Tetuan into a base for privateering. She didn't just hire pirates, she organized a navy. She reached out to the most feared man on the eastern Mediterranean, Hayreddin Barbarossa, the legendary Ottoman admiral and corsair. They formed an unprecedented alliance. Barbarossa would control the seas to the east, and Sayyida al-Hurra would rule the west. Together, they carved the Mediterranean into two spheres of influence. Sayyida's fleet became the scourge of the Christian navies. Her ships were fast, agile, and led by captains who were fiercely loyal to her. They targeted Spanish and Portuguese merchant vessels, capturing valuable cargo and taking high-ranking prisoners for ransom. This wasn't mindless violence. It was a calculated economic and psychological war. She used the wealth gained from these raids to further fortify Tetuan and provide for the refugees who continued to pour in from the north. The European powers were humiliated. The Portuguese and Spanish archives from the time are filled with frantic reports about the woman of Tetuan. They couldn't believe that a woman was outmaneuvering their best naval commanders. For the Europeans, she was a pirate and a villain. For the people of North Africa, she was a hero, a defender of the faith, and a symbol of resistance against colonial encroachment. Sayyida al-Hurra's power grew so great that she couldn't be ignored by the highest levels of Moroccan royalty. In 1541, the Sultan of Morocco, Ahmed al-Watasi, proposed marriage to her. In those days, a marriage to the Sultan meant moving to the capital of Fez and living a life of secluded luxury in the royal harem. Most would have seen this as the ultimate promotion. Sayyida saw it as a threat to her independence. She agreed to the marriage, but on one condition that shocked the entire Islamic world. She would not go to Fez. Instead, the Sultan would have to travel to Tetuan for the wedding. This was a move of incredible political defiance. It was the only time in the history of Morocco that a sultan married outside of his capital. By forcing him to come to her, she was signaling that she was not a subject being absorbed into his court, but a sovereign ruler entering an equal partnership. She remained in Tetuan after the wedding, continuing to govern her city and command her fleet. She was a wife to a sultan, but she remained the queen of the sea. Her reign lasted for 30 years, an incredible feat of longevity in a period defined by constant warfare and internal coups. She managed a complex web of diplomacy, negotiating directly with the Portuguese and Spanish crowns. She was known as a tough negotiator who never backed down. When the Portuguese tried to pressure her by blockading her ports, she responded by intensifying her raids until they were forced back to the negotiating table. However, the end of her reign didn't come at the hands of a foreign enemy. It came from within her own family. In 1542, her son-in-law, Muhammad al-Hassan al-Mandri, led a coup against her. The details of the betrayal are murky, but it seems that a faction within Tetuan, weary of the constant state of war and perhaps jealous of her absolute power, conspired with her younger relatives. She was deposed and stripped of her property and power. She didn't fight a bloody civil war to reclaim her throne. Perhaps she was tired after decades of struggle, or perhaps she saw that the political winds were shifting. She retired to the town of Chefchaouen, the place where her journey in Morocco had begun. She lived there in relative obscurity for nearly 20 more years, passing away in 1561. For centuries, Sayyida al-Hurra was marginalized in the grand narratives of history. Western historians preferred to focus on the male corsairs like Barbarossa or Drake, and some traditionalist historians in the East were uncomfortable with the idea of a woman holding such absolute military and political authority. But her legacy could not be erased. Today, Sayyida al-Hurra is remembered as a pioneering figure, one of the few women in the Islamic world to officially hold the title of al-Hurra. She represents a bridge between the lost glory of Andalusia and the resilient spirit of modern Morocco. She was a woman who took the tragedy of her childhood and forged it into a sword. She proved that power isn't about the title you're born with, but the respect you command and the fear you strike into the hearts of your enemies. She remains a mystery in many ways. We have no portraits of her, only the descriptions of her rivals and the records of her deeds. But the image of the pirate queen standing on the ramparts of Tetuan, looking out over a sea that she owned, continues to inspire. She was the woman who refused to be forgotten, the queen who wouldn't be conquered, and the pirate who held the Mediterranean in her hand. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of the Mediterranean's most formidable queen, subscribe.